Have you ever wondered how many shocking scandals boxing history has tried to bury? From Mike Tyson biting off a piece of Evander Holyfield's ear to Olympic judges allegedly fixing matches, here are 20 shocking scandals boxing history tried to hide. 1. Mike Tyson's ear-biting incident. Mike Tyson was the most intimidating boxer of all time. With his unmatched strength and ferocious fighting style, he became the youngest heavyweight champion in history at 20. But his career wasn't entirely composed of successes. It was also punctuated by scandal. And one of the greatest boxing scandals of all time occurred when Tyson battled Evander Holyfield during their 1997 rematch. Holyfield had already defeated Tyson in the first bout, and high tensions were heading into the rematch. Holyfield took control right from the beginning, employing his superior skill to infuriate Tyson. But events took a startling turn in round 3. Overwhelmed and enraged, Tyson did the unthinkable. He bit off a piece of Holyfield's ear. The fight was absolute pandemonium. Holyfield leapt back in agony, and the referee stopped the bout. But Tyson wasn't finished yet. When the fight was restarted, he attempted to bite Holyfield again. That was the final straw. The referee disqualified Tyson, and the spectators were left dumbstruck. The incident precipitated huge outrage. Tyson was fined $3 million and suspended from boxing. It took more than a year before he could box again. The ear-biting controversy has been one of the most infamous in sports history and solidified Tyson's position as one of boxing's most volatile characters. 2. The death of Duk Koo Kim. Another shocking incident was the tragic demise of South Korean boxer Duk Koo Kim in 1982. Kim was a promising boxer with ambitions to become a world champion. He fought Ray Boom Boom Mancini for the WBA lightweight championship in November 1982. It was the biggest bout of his life, and he gave it his all. From the first bell, the fight was vicious. Both men threw hard punches, neither willing to give in. By the 14th round, Kim was spent, but he continued. Then Mancini threw a crushing right hand that sent Kim crashing to the canvas. He rose to his feet, but it was too late. Minutes after the bout was over, Kim slumped in his corner. He went into a coma, and 4 days later passed away from brain damage. The tragedy rocked the sport of boxing. Kim's passing away brought significant reform to the sport, such as shortening championship bouts from 15 rounds to 12 to make the fighters safer. Even Mancini was shaken, struggling with feelings of guilt for decades. 3. Muhammad Ali's draft refusal. Muhammad Ali was not only a boxing great, he was a cultural icon. With his lightning-quick footwork and quick wit, Ali became the heavyweight champion of the world in 1964 when he beat Sonny Liston. But his greatest battle wasn't with another boxer, it was with the U.S. government. In 1967, while the Vietnam War was ongoing, Ali was drafted into the United States Army. But he did not go. He once famously uttered, "I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong." Ali was a Muslim and a member of the Nation of Islam, and according to his religious views, he felt that war was against him. The ruling created a storm. He was called unpatriotic by many, but others praised him for his bravery in standing up for what he felt was right. But the government did not take his refusal lightly. Ali was stripped of his heavyweight championship, banned from boxing for almost 4 years, and sentenced to 5 years in prison, although he never spent time behind bars because he appealed the case. While he was away from boxing, Ali emerged as a strong voice of civil and anti-war movements. He took his case to the U.S. Supreme Court, which reversed his conviction in 1971. When he returned to the ring once again, he was no less in his prime, regaining his heavyweight title in the legendary Rumble in the Jungle with George Foreman in 1974. Ali's draft refusal was one of the most controversial moments in boxing history, proving that he wasn't just the greatest inside the ring, he was also a fighter for what he believed was right. 4. Sonny Liston's mysterious death. Sonny Liston was one of the most intimidating heavyweight champions of all time. He possessed knockout power, an imposing presence, and a rough past that created both fear and confusion around him. Yet his life came to an end in a manner that is still one of boxing's greatest enigmas. Liston's popularity peaked after he was crowned world champion in 1962 when he knocked out Floyd Patterson in the first round. His fans thought that he was invincible until he was beaten by Muhammad Ali in 1964. The bout was already marred by controversy, with some even speculating that Liston had deliberately lost the bout under pressure from the Mafia. Following his loss of the title, Liston went on boxing, but was never as dominant again. Then, in January of 1971, Liston was discovered lifeless in his home in Las Vegas. His wife had found his body in their bedroom, and the police concluded that he had been lifeless for around a week when he was discovered. The demise was certified as a result of a heroin overdose, but most suspected there was a more sinister motive involved. A few things didn't make sense. Liston was afraid of needles, but the manner of demise indicated he had shot heroin. He was suspected by some of being assassinated because of mafia connections, or possibly involved in a fixing scandal that went awry. Even Ali would later declare that he had suspected Liston had been done away with for his unsavory connections. Even today, Liston's passing away is not solved. Whether it was an accident, an overdose, or something else, it's one of the greatest mysteries in boxing history. 5. The Phantom Punch Controversy. Quick, strong, and full of himself, Muhammad Ali won the heavyweight title in 1964 by beating Sonny Liston, a fighter considered unbeatable by many. But when the two fought again in 1965, what occurred in the ring left fans bewildered for decades. Only seconds into the first round, Ali had tossed a glancing blow at Liston's head. Instantly, Liston crumpled onto the floor, but hardly anybody witnessed the punch connecting. The audience gasped in shock. Had Liston been knocked out, or was he diving? The referee, Jersey Joe Walcott, appeared uncertain as to what he should do. Ali was standing over Liston, shouting for him to stand up. When the fight was finally stopped, few spectators had any idea of what had transpired. The punch that allegedly ended the fight became referred to as the Phantom Punch because it was so quick and difficult to observe. Even today, people still argue about whether the punch was real. Some say Ali's lightning-fast hands delivered a devastating shot that Liston couldn't handle. Others believe Liston, who had connections to the Mafia, may have been pressured to lose on purpose. Whatever the truth, the fight remains one of the most debated moments in boxing history. 6. The Panama Lewis Black Bottle Scandal. While Ali's Phantom Punch was mysterious, Panama Lewis's actions in 1983 were straight-up cheating. Lewis was a well-known boxing trainer, but he became infamous for what he did to his fighter, Luis Resto, in a fight against Billy Collins Jr. On June 16, 1983, Collins and Resto battled in a ferocious fight. Something was amiss from the beginning. Resto's punches were far too hard, and Collins's face swelled to an alarming degree. Collins lost by decision after 10 rounds, but when his father, also his trainer, shook Resto's gloves, he knew something wasn't right. The reality was astounding. Panama Lewis had taken padding out of Resto's gloves, so his punches were as lethal as naked knuckle punches. Worse, Lewis had been observed providing Resto with a strange black bottle between rounds, suspected of holding a secret illicit drug. The scandal destroyed lives. Collins endured permanent damage to his eyes and was forced out of boxing. A year later, he passed away in a motor vehicle accident, with many convinced that his depression over the bout contributed to it. Resto and Lewis were suspended from boxing, and both did time in jail. 7. Jake LaMotta's fixed fight confession. Jake LaMotta was in boxing history one of the toughest fighters out there. He was called the Raging Bull, and he possessed an iron chin and an aggressive approach that ranked him among the greatest middleweight boxers of his generation. Yet in 1947, LaMotta was caught up in one of boxing's largest scandals, tossing a fight intentionally. Boxing was dominated by the mafia at the time, and playing by their rules was the only way to get a title shot. LaMotta desired to fight for the middleweight title, but there was an issue. The mob had control over boxing, and he wasn't being offered a shot. So, in November 1947, LaMotta lost a fight to Billy Fox on purpose in return for a future title bout. Spectators who watched the fight could sense something was amiss. LaMotta, a tough guy, hardly fought back. The defeat seemed suspicious, but nothing was ever proven at the time. Years later, LaMotta confessed to having thrown the fight before a U.S. Senate committee probing corruption in boxing. His admission stunned the world, demonstrating that even great champions would occasionally resort to unsavory means to succeed. LaMotta eventually earned his title fight and became the middleweight champion of 1949, but his previous behavior discolored his legacy. His life was later immortalized in the iconic film Raging Bull, played by Robert De Niro. 8. Floyd Mayweather's domestic violence cases. Floyd Mayweather is one of the best boxers of all time. A 5-division world champion, he retired undefeated and earned millions in the sport. But beyond the ring, his life has been marked by controversy, particularly his record of domestic violence accusations. Throughout the years, Mayweather has been charged several times with abusing women. One of the most severe cases occurred in 2010 when his former girlfriend, Josie Harris, claimed that he physically attacked her in front of the children. Harris reported that Mayweather pulled her hair, punched her, and threatened her. He was found guilty and sentenced to 90 days in prison, although he spent only 2 months behind bars. This was not the first time Mayweather had been accused of such actions. During 2001 and 2002, he was accused of the same thing, and while some of the cases were dropped, others led to legal issues. Ultimately, Mayweather's career only flourished. He earned hundreds of millions of dollars, sold out stadiums, and became one of the greatest athletes of all time. Most people condemn the boxing community for turning a blind eye to his history and not penalizing him severely for what he had done. To this day, Mayweather's history of domestic violence is a shadow of his reputation that few fans can forget. 9. The Don King legal battles. Don King is one of the most famous and infamous boxing promoters of all time. With his flashy personality and sky-high hair, he helped promote some of the biggest fights in boxing history, including Muhammad Ali's legendary Rumble in the Jungle and Thrilla in Manila. However, behind the scenes, King was accused of being one of the most corrupt figures in boxing. King's troubles with the law began well before he became a boxing promoter. In the 1950s, he had been convicted of manslaughter for kicking a man to lifelessness over an unpaid gambling debt. He had served nearly 4 years in jail before he found his way to boxing. As his fame grew, so did the charges against him. Numerous fighters, including Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, and Mike Tyson, accused King of scamming them out of money. Tyson, specifically, alleged King swindled him out of millions during his peak years. He even sued King for $100 million, settling for a fraction of that amount. King was also charged with rigging fights, making under-the-table deals, and engaging in illicit business practices. Although he never had serious legal repercussions for these allegations, his place as one of the most corrupt in boxing remains. Through the scandals, he still promoted fights for decades, demonstrating that in boxing, money and authority tend to be more valuable than integrity. 10. The Riddick Bowe vs. Andrew Golota riots. Boxing is all about its violent action, but occasionally things get out of hand, like in the notorious 1996 bout between Riddick Bowe and Andrew Golota. What began as a typical boxing match soon became a full-blown riot that injured individuals and left the sport in shock. Riddick Bowe was a retired heavyweight champion, renowned for his skill and strength. Andrew Golota was a Polish boxer who was trying to establish himself. But throughout their bout, Golota was constantly committing a huge error. Over and over again, he punched Bowe below the waist. Low blows are not allowed in boxing, and Golota was warned repeatedly by the referee. But he did not stop. In the 7th round, after yet another low blow, the referee disqualified Golota. That's when hell broke loose. Bo's team, furious at Golota's dirty tactics, rushed into the ring and attacked him. Fans started throwing chairs and punches, and a massive brawl broke out inside the arena. Security struggled to control the chaos as people ran for safety. The riot went on for several minutes until police finally intervened to put an end to the chaos. Dozens of fans were hurt, and the bout became one of the most humiliating moments in boxing history. Surprisingly enough, even with all the controversy, Bo and Golota again fought each other a few months later, and the same thing again. Golota was disqualified again for low blows, showing that sometimes history repeats itself. 11. James Butler's tragic assault. James Butler was a talented boxer who went by the nickname of the Harlem Hammer. He possessed talent, strength, and an opportunity for success, yet his life spiraled into darkness and brutality. In 2001, after losing a bout to Richard Grant in a fundraising match, Butler did the unthinkable. It sucker-punched Grant when the fight was over. It occurred only seconds after Grant had been declared the winner. When the two opponents moved towards each other for what would normally have been a courteous post-fight handshake, Butler blindsided Grant with a savage punch using his bare fist and knocked him out. The audience gasped in shock. Grant had a dislocated jaw, cuts, and severe injuries, while Butler was arrested on the spot. His boxing career never picked up from there. But the worst part was to come. Some years later, in 2006, Butler was arrested for committing an even more appalling crime: assassination. He was convicted of assassinating his friend and sports journalist Sam Kellerman, brother of sports analyst Max Kellerman. The circumstances were horrific, and Butler was given a 29-year prison term. 12. Antonio Margarito's illegal hand wraps. Antonio Margarito was a formidable welterweight champion who was respected for his tenacious fighting spirit and resilience. However, in 2009, before his much-anticipated bout with Shane Mosley, a scandal transpired that devastated his reputation. Before the bout, Mosley trainer Nazim Richardson observed something amiss when Margarito's hands were being wrapped. He insisted the wraps be unwrapped and examined. What they discovered was alarming. His wraps had been illegally loaded with a hard, plaster-like material. This was the implication that after Margarito began sweating, the substance would set as hard as cement, rendering his punches even more dangerous. It was an attempt to cheat and seriously harm his opponent. Officials immediately made him rewrap his hands within legal parameters, and without the benefit, Margarito was utterly dominated by Mosley, losing via technical knockout. Following an investigation, he was suspended from boxing for 1 year. The scandal generated even more questions. Had Margarito employed illegal wraps in past bouts? Most suspected that he could have done the same in his vicious 2008 bout with Miguel Cotto, in which Cotto's face was swollen and bloodied. The fact that Margarito could have won some of his bouts dishonestly outraged fans. 13. Tyson Fury's doping controversy. Tyson Fury is one of the world's best-known boxers, with an amazing comeback and larger-than-life personality. In 2015, he stunned the boxing community by beating Vladimir Klitschko, bringing the champion's extended reign to an end. However, as soon as Fury had celebrated his triumph, a scandal erupted. He tested positive for a banned substance. It was discovered that Fury tested positive for nandrolone, a drug used to improve performance in his body. This triggered an investigation, and overnight, his breathtaking win came into question. Had he consumed banned substances to enhance his performance? The charges were severe, and the British Boxing Board of Control opened an investigation. Fury denied any guilt, stating that the substance was due to consuming wild boar. But many critics and fans were not convinced. As the case went on, Fury's personal life went into chaos. He battled depression, gained a lot of weight, and even retired from boxing at one stage. Later, Fury was given a 2-year retroactive ban, so he could come back in 2017. But by that time, his career had suffered a massive setback. But Fury staged an amazing comeback, lost weight, came back to the ring, and became one of the biggest stars in boxing once again. 14. Oscar de la Hoya's personal struggles. Oscar de la Hoya was the golden boy of boxing. Olympic gold and world titles in several weight divisions, he was the most popular fighter of his era. But in life outside the ring, his life was not as flawless as it appeared. Throughout his years, De La Hoya battled addiction, specifically to drugs and alcohol. Even though he was successful, he was constantly fighting personal demons. In various interviews, he confessed that fame and pressure led him to substance abuse, and he checked into rehab a number of times. But his issues didn't stop there. In 2007, scandalous photos of De La Hoya surfaced online, posing in fishnet stockings and women's lingerie. The photos were shocking to the fans, and initially, De La Hoya denied that they were real. Years later, though, he confessed that indeed they were genuine and were produced at a moment when he was abusing drugs and alcohol. The scandal damaged his clean-cut reputation, and his fans were shocked by the disclosures. 15. Manny Pacquiao's tax evasion case. Manny Pacquiao is among the all-time great boxers. Nicknamed the Pac-Man, he captured world championships in a staggering 8 different weight divisions, which ranks him as one of the greatest fighters of all time. Yet, even as he was successful in the ring, he found himself in grave legal jeopardy outside of it. In 2013, the Philippine government indicted Pacquiao for not paying more than $50 million worth of taxes. The authorities even froze his bank accounts, rendering the boxing sensation unable to use his money. Pacquiao protested the accusation, saying he had already paid taxes in America, where a majority of his bouts were held. Because the U.S. and the Philippines had a tax treaty, he contended that he did not have to pay again. Nevertheless, the Philippine tax agency wasn't impressed. They demanded Pacquiao repay his enormous tax liability and insisted he failed to file his income correctly. The dispute went on for years and became one of the largest accounting scandals in the history of boxing. What made the drama of the situation even greater was that Pacquiao wasn't merely a boxer, but a politician too. He had previously been elected to the Philippine Congress and subsequently became a senator. This tax scandal threatened the end of his political career, with critics asking whether he could be relied upon to serve the nation when he himself was fighting his own monetary battles. 16. Rocky Lockridge's tragic fall into homelessness. Rocky Lockridge was a once-feared boxer, most famous for knocking out Roger Mayweather in the first round. He was a 2-time super featherweight champion and battled some of the best boxers of his time. But while his career in the ring was prosperous, his life after retirement was a tragic reversal. As with most boxers, Lockridge had a tough time with life after competing. With no stable income and increasing personal issues, he turned to drug addiction. As his problems mounted, he lost everything, his house included. The former great champion wound up on the streets. His history went public in 2010 when he featured on The Intervention Show. His intervention was based on how his life had been wrecked by crack cocaine, and people were astonished to watch the extent of how he had devolved. Lockridge teared during an emotional scene at some point, which became a viral hit for the best cry ever. Luckily, this was not the end of his tale. Lockridge leveraged the spotlight from the show to reform his life. He cleaned up, reunited with his family, and began inspiring other addicts. Even though he passed away in 2019, his story is still one of boxing's saddest yet most motivating stories. 17. The Paulie Malignaggi vs. Conor McGregor gym fight. In 2017, everybody was talking about Conor McGregor's bout against Floyd Mayweather. The UFC sensation was venturing into the boxing arena for the first time, and to get ready for it, he hired former champion Paulie Malignaggi as a sparring partner. But what began as routine training became one of the biggest showdowns in contemporary boxing. Former two-weight world champion Malignaggi agreed to spar with McGregor in order to fine-tune his boxing. Following the session, though, McGregor's camp leaked out edited footage that gave the impression that McGregor had knocked out Malignaggi. This sent headlines around the world, with the implication being that McGregor had dominated a former boxing champion. Malignaggi was angry, though. He said the video was edited and that he had been pushed down, not knocked down. He accused McGregor's camp of editing the video to portray McGregor in a more favorable light than he actually was. The exchange became a heated exchange, with Malignaggi calling for the entire unedited video to be released. The drama escalated to a point where Malignaggi broke camp with McGregor and spent several years taunting him, even inviting him to a legitimate boxing match. Although the bout never materialized, the sparring match became one of the biggest controversies in boxing history, illustrating that sometimes the drama in and out of the ring is just as intriguing as the fights themselves. 18. Roy Jones Jr.'s doping allegations. Roy Jones Jr. is generally considered one of the best boxers in history. He was famous for his incredible speed, reflexes, and mastery of several different weight divisions. During his peak, he won championships in 4 different weight divisions and became the first former middleweight champion to win a heavyweight title in over 100 years. But then, in 2000, Jones's reputation suffered when he tested positive for a prohibited substance, following a fight with Richard Hall. Both Jones and Hall were said to have had traces of androstenedione, a substance with steroid-like properties, in their bodies. Although Hall's levels were considerably higher, the fact that Jones had tested positive in the first place was sufficient to cause suspicion. Jones defended himself, stating that he had inadvertently consumed a contaminated supplement and that he never knowingly used performance-enhancing drugs. But since the case was not pursued heavily and no severe punishment was issued, the scandal was forgotten in the background. Even with the scandal, Jones continued to battle and was still a likable figure in the world of boxing. The doping case is, however, one blemish on his otherwise legendary career, with some criticizing that it tarnished his own reputation as one of the greatest in the sport. 19. The Adrian Broner. Legal troubles. Adrian Broner was formerly regarded as the future Floyd Mayweather, with his flamboyant attitude, spotless record, and multiple belts in various weights. He had the skill, the confidence, and the charisma to dominate the sport of boxing. His life, though, has been overshadowed by trouble with the law, financial difficulties, and personal woes. Broner's troubles beyond the ring began early. He has been arrested numerous times for offenses varying from assault and battery to robbery and disorderly conduct. One of his most notable cases occurred in 2018, when he was charged with groping a woman at a mall, resulting in his being taken into custody. In another instance, he was ordered to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in compensation for assaulting a man outside a bowling center. Aside from his legal troubles, Broner also had severe monetary problems. With millions earned through boxing, he has said that he was broke at times. In 2020, he even shared a post on social media stating he had only $13 in cash, leaving fans who considered him a future legend stunned. 20. The match-fixing allegations in the Olympics. The Olympics is all about equal competition, national pride, and the world's top athletes competing on a level playing field. Yet in boxing, there have been numerous scandals in the past revealing corruption, fixed fights, and biased judging that stole victories from fighters. The largest match-fixing scandal occurred at the 2016 Rio Olympics, where some fights produced extremely suspicious outcomes. Perhaps the most astonishing instance was the case of Irish boxer Michael Conlan, who unequivocally outperformed Russian opponent Vladimir Nikitin in their bout. Yet, when the judges rendered the verdict, they awarded the victory to Nikitin, leaving fans, pundits, and even observers appalled. Conlon was apoplectic and infamously flipped the judges off live on TV before branding the system corrupt. Subsequent investigations upheld that corruption had been involved in the event. A report indicated that officials had fixed fights to favor some fighters, with bribes and covert arrangements affecting the results. This scandal tainted the image of Olympic boxing and prompted demands for sweeping reforms in the sport. Sadly, Olympic boxing has long been plagued by match fixing. Even dating back to the 1988 Seoul Olympics, there were rumors of bribed judges assisting specific countries in taking home medals. The problem persists today, and many wonder if the greatest fighters are truly being crowned champions or if the system remains broken.